Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, March 15th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect a high of 82 degrees in San Antonio today. In the first week of daylight savings times, there should be plenty of sunshine in San Antonio. Even though overcast skies and temperatures in the low 70s brought just a trickle of customers to kick off spring break, Texas's tubing outfitters are hopeful that the weeks and months to come will bring a chance to recover from the pandemic's economic devastation. At the U.S Mexico border, the Biden administration is turning to FEMA for help managing and caring for record numbers of unaccompanied immigrant children who are streaming into the United States by illegally crossing the border. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. It takes only 21 badges to qualify for Eagle Scout, the highest rank in the former Boy Scouting program, renamed Scouts BSA. Gail Hendy earned every single badge available. Fewer than 10 Scouts, male or female, have done that since the Alamo Area Council started in 1912. And fewer than 500 have accomplished that nationally. Hendy holds another rare achievement. She's one of the first 4 female Eagle Scouts in the 13-county council area. The 4 are 17-year-old Michelle Berland of Troop 496, 18-year-old Angel Gonzalez of Troop 2222G, 18-year-old Medwin Guajardo of Troop 361, and 18-year-old Hendy. You can meet the 4 young women and learn more about the challenges they faced since women were allowed to join the previously all-male organization in February 2019 in Liz Hardaway's latest article. The blackouts that crippled Texas during the recent winter storm were caused largely by the energy industry's failure to ensure reliable natural gas supplies to power plants, a problem that state regulators and industry leaders have known about for at least a decade. Much of the blame for last month's colossal power failure has been directed at the state's grid operator, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT. But electric companies and industry experts said natural gas-fired plants were responsible for about half the power generation that was knocked out during the storm. Head over to expressnews.com to find out everything you need to know about the Railroad Commission and its role in last month's outages. Calvin Casey and Rudy Johnson have been dishing about sports on their radio show since 2004, and for years before that while growing up together in San Antonio. They have strong opinions, and often those opinions conflict. When they disagree, they do so honestly. That the pair even have a successful radio show is an accomplishment by itself. That's because both Johnson and Casey are black in an industry that's still, as it was when they started out 17 years ago, mostly lily white. The two have known one another since they were kids, and that shared history is one reason why their radio show works. Read more about the show and the journey to get on the air in Richard Marini's latest article. A San Antonio ramen noodle restaurant was vandalized early Sunday after the owner spoke out during an interview on CNN against Governor Greg Abbott's rollback of the mask requirement in Texas. After Wednesday's interview, Mike Nguyen, owner of Noodle Tree, was prepared for hateful comments on social media. But on Sunday, a maintenance crew discovered something worse. Vandals had spray-painted ethnic slurs and a death threat on the windows of his shop and on a bench of his Northwest Side restaurant. Nguyen, who was battling lymphoma, had said money was not worth losing over lives. He'd recently lost his grandmother to COVID-19 and said he wouldn't put any of his employees or customers at risk. Jacob Beltran and Marina Starleaf-Riker have more in their latest article. President Joe Biden signed the latest coronavirus relief package on Thursday, enacting $1.9 trillion in aid that includes an expanded child tax credit for next year's income taxes. Previously, the child tax credit allowed families to deduct $2,000 from their annual income tax payments for each child 16 and under. The new stimulus bill expands that tax credit to 17-year-olds and increases the amount. Head over to expressnews.com to learn more about that tax credit. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. It took President Joe Biden all 6 weeks to spark a slew of fights with Texas Republicans over oil, immigration, guns, and more. Even as the president touted major early victories for his administration, new battles are brewing on several fronts. With the local health department reporting hundreds of backlogged cases Sunday, San Antonio reached a grim milestone. More than 200,000 COVID-19 infections have been reported since the pandemic began. CPS Energy sued the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, alleging the state's grid operator left power prices too high for too long during last month's winter storm. The Third Court of Appeals has denied a petition from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's office to stop a trial court hearing in a suit filed by whistleblowers who claimed they were wrongfully terminated after reporting Paxton to law enforcement for alleged bribery and other public corruption. San Antonio's Methodist Hospital has cared for more than 3,200 coronavirus patients since the pandemic started back in March 2020. The hospital's coronavirus care teams held a vigil of remembrance Saturday with family members of virus victims. How can a man be guilty of the very ugliness he condemns? It may be difficult to reconcile this contradiction, but the dynamic reflects the complex nature of racism, writes Robert Seltzer. You can read his commentary on Dr. Seuss over at expressnews.com. On March 5th, Leon Valley's new acting city manager announced that Joe Salvaggio, the suburb's police chief for nearly 5 years, no longer worked there. Some residents are relieved and others are puzzled, if not incensed. A slate of 4 candidates is trying to unseat 3 of the longest tenured board members of the San Antonio ISD in the May election. In Northside ISD, there are 3 seats up for grabs and 10 candidates. Head over to expressnews.com to find out everything you need to know about those races. In his Restless City column, Greg Jefferson writes, quote, "The deep freeze and its financial and political aftermath have pushed Paula Gold Williams and CPS into treacherous territory. Find out if he thinks she's still the right person to lead the utility in his latest article." Elaine Ayala writes, quote, "They aren't much to look at now. But when a 2-phase, $5 million renovation project by the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center is completed, 7 casitas on the city's west side will come back to life. Read more about the proud history being reclaimed over at expressnews.com. Manuel Medina is embracing his new role as the chief of staff for Texas Representative Liz Campos. Gilbert Garcia has more on the surprising career move by the former Bexar County Democratic Party chairman. The Express News editorial board writes, quote, "When Comal ISD trustees voted last week to make masks optional, they undermined every person there who wants to continue science-based precautions against a pandemic." Read the full editorial over on our website. This week in history, on March 16, 1960, several area lunch counters began integrating their eating areas after years of segregation. Several local businesses and religious leaders began meeting to discuss the policy of segregation in San Antonio. The following statement was issued to members of the media. Quote, "Leaders of San Antonio religious groups, Baptist, Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant, in a closed meeting with representatives from retail drug firms, variety stores, and large department chairs, today agreed to a quiet and orderly policy of no discrimination at their eating facilities." Learn more about San Antonio's lunch counter desegregation over at expressnews.com. There was a lingering sense of doubt as the tournament began. The night before, the NBA had suspended its season hours after Utah Jazz star Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19. Gobert's diagnosis was the beginning of a ripple effect that shook the sports world. In the days leading to the boys' tournament, UIL officials were confident it could be completed. The weekend before, the UIL girls' tournament finished without incident. In a matter of hours, the UIL boys basketball tournament came to a stop on March 12, 2020. It was the first of what was supposed to be a 3-day event at the Alamo Dome. You can take a closer look at the chain of events from the perspectives of several local coaches over at expressnews.com. Slider Provider rates a solid neighborhood option because it creates its own neighborhood wherever it goes, drawing in people with a menu of 9 sliders made with chubby Angus beef patties or grilled chicken. Head over to expressnews.com to read the latest in our 52 Weeks of Food Truck series. A who's who of Texas music stars will play a virtual concert organized by Matthew McConaughey and his wife, Camila, to benefit people impacted by the devastating winter storm that hit the state February. The lineup includes George Strait and Willie Nelson. The San Antonio Botanical Garden will give visitors an up-close look at the plant life that factored in much of Mexican artist Frida Kahlo's work in a new open-air exhibit. It's time to cut down your freeze-damaged plumbago and Pride of Barbados and hope, writes Calvin Finch. In his down-to-earth column, Neil Sperry answers readers' questions about ball moss, top-dressing lawns, and more. Winners of 6 straight and Big 12 tournament champions, the Longhorns were rewarded for a brilliant closing stretch with a number 3 seed in the East region. Texas will face number 14 seed Abilene Christian in the first round. Meanwhile, Baylor earned the number 1 seed in the South region. Texas Tech, a number 6 seed, will face Utah State. DeMar DeRozan has missed 5 games this season for family business. He has missed none due to injury. For the 30 games DeRozan has been on the floor, his value to the Spurs and their playoff charge has been self-evident. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Monday, March 15th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful Monday, everyone.